Welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at another version of the Icon 10-inch pliers wrench. One of the viewers commented and said, hey, there's a new version of the Icon pliers wrench out, and it's kind of curious to see if it's significantly different than the previous version. So you can kind of see there's a family resemblance, but there are indeed some differences. So, can Icon get a applied force that's better than the much lower force we saw from these to the other two we tested? Let's find out. If you're keeping track, these are still made in Taiwan. Okay, to start with, we'll take a look comparing the old with the new. Now, the overall design is very similar. There's some subtle differences. There's a little bit more shaping on the handle. You can see this handle on the new one is contoured a little bit differently. The foam is more foamy, I feel like, on the new one. The area that says Icon is laser etched, much like the other one, but the other one has that inset area for the Icon, so this has larger area. This has more contrast in its size laser etching. This one you probably have a little bit of a hard time even seeing until I get it up to the camera. If you catch that glare on it, you don't even notice that it's got the laser etching, where this one is very clear that it has it. So the overall design looks similar. We'll test a few things here like we've been testing. Let's start out with our HRC scale on the jaws. And the version 1, if you recall, we had a 50 to 55. So we're going to start with 55 on version 2 and see what we get. I think I'm scraping it with the 55. It's a little hard to tell because sometimes there's scale on these. Yeah, same thing. These are 50 to 55. That's the movable jaw. Now let's see if the stationary jaw is the same. Skating. Digging in. So 50 to 55 is the same as what we had on version 1. Okay, and now we're going to get our weight set up in ounces, which we are. And if you recall, the previous version was 20.6. So they got a little bit lower at 19.7. Let's just verify. 20.5-ish. So the new one is definitely a little bit lighter, so that's shaved about an ounce off of that. Okay, now the original version, we had a jaw width of 5/16, and let's see what we have on our new one. I would say we're very close to 5/16, if not right on it, on the lower jaw. And on the upper, we're also right on 5/16. So we have a 5/16 jaw width, and the jaw length was 1.25 inches, and we measured that by coming in, going to the full capacity of the jaw, and seeing that that is where we're at. Now this is just shy of that 1.25 inches. And this one makes a full 1.25 inches. So I'm going to say that the jaw depth or length is just a hair that might even be right to 3/16. Yeah, that's 1 3/16. Right on there. I don't know if you can see that or not. But that's right on 1 3/16. And our key size from side to side is 5/16, just like the other one. The maximum opening of the tool in its furthest open notch in the handle closed position is 1 13/16 for the old version, and it is right on 2 for the new version. So you can see how the new version opens up quite a bit further than the old version. So that's an interesting thing, because I'm wondering if they got flack from people advertising that, hey, this is a 2-inch tool, and to get just shy of 2 inch with it open, you still only got 1 15/16. Now this one fully open, you get 2 1/8. And as we go through what we've already tested, this has the widest jaw opening so far. Now we're going to take this thing over to the vise and the torque wrench, and we're going to spin this thing to 100 foot-pounds of torque, and we're going to take a look in the microscope and see what for marking we put in these jaws, and we could compare to what happened to the jaws on the original version when we spun that one up to 100 foot-pounds. Okay, we are over at the vise, and we can see we're at 0 here, and I have the new pair adjusted to, we have a 5/8 Allen socket in the torque wrench here, and what I'm going to do is see if I can get to 100 foot-pounds on this and see how much of a mark we make. Okay, so we got to 104 foot-pounds, and we're going to see how that mark looks in the microscope. Okay, we're back over at the microscope, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the first pair that we did, and we're going to see how much of an indent we had when we went to 100 foot-pounds. You can see here there's an indent, and I can feel that with the ruler. That's not it's not just a mark. And then the movable jaw, we had a little bit of a mark as well. Let me see if I can get that into frame. It's not lit the best. There we go. You can see the movable jaw here. That one I really can't feel all that much, but it is a visible mark all the same. So that's the original pair. Let's see how this new pair fared out. Now the new pair, we also have a noticeable mark. Here you can see my hardness testing marks here. And I can feel this. It's got a little bit of an indent to it if you look, though it's just barely there. It's not that bad. I think it's better than the original version. Now if we go to the movable jaw and look at how that looks, this I don't feel. You can see the mark, but I can't feel that. and if we look at the side profile, you don't see that indent at all. Whereas if we looked at the original pair, you can tell by looking at the side of these where we torqued on this. Right there, you can see that mark. Now that's not a bad mark, but you can see where it's got that. Now that's a good test that I like to do, because the 5/8 hex is smaller and it would be putting a lot of force on those jaws to get to that 100 foot-pounds. So in order to get that, we're kind of gonna make the most amount of marks on these tools, and I gotta say the new pair I think held up better on that test. Okay, now we're back over at the load cell vise. We're just zeroing it out here, and you'll notice that the load cell vise has an upgrade. We now have switching, so we can select which or both of the load cells that we're using. So we are on this load cell, and that is going to be because we're compressionally loading this load cell right here. And I made an interesting discovery with this new pair of pliers. We had been testing our pliers so that they were all at a comfortable squeezing handle range. Now if I do that with these, I actually bottom out the plier right at 315 kilograms. Okay, so since I was playing around with trying to figure out how best to measure this new pair of Icon pliers, it became obvious to me that I actually get a decent reading if I put the load cell in the tool just like this all the way back. I can go with a lot of force and not bottom out the tool, you know, move it out of leverage. Now, we did not measure all of the other pliers that way. So if we're going to go with a new standard, let's quick run through everything that we tested so far so we can get everything up to date. This is a learning curve as we're going, so this is what happens. We're just playing around here in the shop having some fun, but we got to kind of keep it equal between everything. So let's do a lightning round here and go through with our load cell vise and re-record all of our stuff. Okay, so we're back at the load cell vise once again, and we're going to go with our new Icon. We're going to have it set up with the load cells like we talked about, jammed as far back into the pliers as we can, and we're going to get it set into our load cell vise just like that. We're going to go to 5. Okay, so our 5 is still 50. Our vise is at 2 and 5/16. Now we're going to go up to our 75. And we're still seeing feedback, so I feel good about this, that we're not going too far. Overshot the 76, but that's not too bad. So that's 500. And what's our reading now? 1 7/8. Okay. So that's our new Icon. Let's go with our old Icon. We're going to have our load cell jammed into the jaws as far as we can. this one we're going to have to open the vise up a little bit more. Go parallel with our movable jaw. 5. 5 is about 40. And we are 3. Going up to 75. So that's very interesting, and when we test it this way, we almost get the same numbers as we did on the other. So that's saying how much flex is in that jaw. 500. What is our vice jaw at? 2 7/16. Okay, so now we're going to go to our conipics. And we're going to go all the way in on the plier jaw. We're going to go until we're reading 50, or I should say 5, which happens to be 50. What is our vice jaw opening? 2 9/16. Get that set in there properly. Now we're going to go up to our 75. Let that even out a little bit. I'll call that 640. And what's our jaw? 2 1/8. So we got more force out of the conipics when all things are equal. Now we're going to go with the original Klein cheapy Chinesium one that we tested. Same thing, all the way in on it. Opening about like that. Let's go to 5. Okay, so 5 is 30. It's our jaw. 2 1/2. Let's go up to 75. So I think we could call that 520. What do you think? We'll call it 520. And we're right at 1 15/16. Okay, so now we have some results. I'm not sure why I wanted to go on the outside. I was thinking you'd get the most force on the outside of the jaws, but it was an interesting test all the same because it really showed how much this stationary jaw flexes on this icon. So that's not nothing. Now, I guess we had less flex on the stationary jaw of the Klein, but overall we had lower numbers. So these two performed pretty much identically as far as force exerted at 75, which makes me happy because now I think we're on to something. The conipics outperformed 640 to 500. And then the Klein just eked out a little bit more than the icons at 520 with our magic number 75 force applied. So I think we're into it now. I'll update the spreadsheet. I think we're off and running as far as what we're going to do testing wise. Hey, it's an evolving monster, but I think I like what we have. Let me know in the comments, should we do a test up close and then one out further, just to see what the loss in force is? Let me know if that would be interesting, and I can include that. I guess for now I'll create new columns, and we won't lose all that previous data that we collected. But if we want to see what the force does to the jaws, what you're applying back here as opposed to near the tip, I can let that information in the spreadsheet. It's just going to grow bigger and bigger, but that's no problem. Hopefully at some point we'll still be able to read it on the bottom of the page. But I got no problem leaving it in. Let me know what you guys think, and that's, hey, we'll carry it on that way. I think we got her wrapped up now. New icon pliers, opens up wider, might have a little bit harder jaw, but isn't really that much stronger. It does appear as though it has less flex than the old version, but it didn't apply more force. So these two are still the bottom tier, then it's the Klein, and of course top dog is the Knipex. So as always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.